A roided up army fighting against a hockey player financed by Ronald McDonald. A Mickey Mouse fanatic defending Disney's honor against a simp that looks like Jim from Tekken. A powerful tribe warrior who turned morbidly obese after discovering Nintendo games. Clashing against a psycho Batman wannabe who murders homeless people in his free time. President Obama and whatever the fuck this is just a glimpse of the craziness you can expect from Kengan Ashura. 300 years ago, while Japan was at peace on the fronts, within the country, a brutal war between merchants was raging. The merchants were conspiring and murdering each other for the dominance of the market. In response, the young shogun announced the following to prevent further chaos. If you want to be the most goatlet Rizzler in Ohio, you need to stop edging and look smacks to prove that you got the most bussin' yet.
As you command!
And thus, a long tradition of holding Kengan tournaments began, where the merchants select the mightiest warriors of the era to battle in their name. The winner of the tournament determines the most skillful merchant deserving of the chairman position, which holds immense power and prestige. Now, how exactly does someone else fighting a deathmatch in your name reflect your skills as a merchant? It doesn't, because that's retarded. But logic is not the driving force of Kengan. It's the gut-wrenching, testosterone-filled, action-packed martial art fights. Before you can catch your breath, the next fight is already in motion. Especially the constant mixing of widely different fighters with the unique martial art forms makes it so intriguing. Can a genius in foresight who specializes in throws and finishing blows compete against a boxing world champion twice his size? Who is stronger? A master in primal sumo where you can drop kick your opponents, or a veteran wrestler who doesn't feel any pain? What about a giant fisherman with the power to slay whales and the balance of a ballerina? Can he outskill a prodigy in ancient bare knuckle fighting? And what would a clash of raw brute force between two German-looking muscle beasts look like, where the actual German one is bald for no specific reason? And what keeps the tension constantly alive is how closely matched the fights feel. Every fighter had to prove themselves worthy by participating in previous death matches, so everyone in this tournament possesses the necessary skill and resolve to murder their opponent. Even the reigning, undefeated, undisputed, skin-tight latex-wearing champion constantly struggles and faces the threat of losing his life just like everybody else. But none of this would have a meaningful impact if it were just generic and soulless characters beating each other up. Luckily for us, Kengan is jam-packed with more mentally challenged individuals than your heart can desire. We got Fat Guru from Minions as a referee, Adult Bakugo, that one fruity obelisk teacher from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Aipokai aka John Jones, Dr. Mundo from League of Legends, the obligatory I have to scream 24/7 guy, Wolverine, Fed Up with Life Wolverine, Prince Charming from Shrek, and even one female fighter that doesn't actually fight except against the sinking birth rates.
I really want to have your children.
Then we have the extra special ones who ride the short bus. Like Jerry Tyson, at the age of 17 he moved to China and fell in love with Kung Fu. After spending many years mastering several Kung Fu styles mimicking animals, he came to a sudden realization. Wait, isn't this kinda gay? So in true American fashion, he freed Chinese Kung Fu from its oppressive shackles and developed a new style that mimics missiles instead, launching himself at max speed at every commie that dares to stand in the way of true freedom. Or Setsuna Kiryu, a male Tsunura who moans every 30 seconds and is definitely only in a platonic way interested in the main character Oma Tokita, like Hisoka was interested platonically in little children. His main way of fighting is vanishing and creating giant poopy holes by twisting and touching his opponents at high speeds. Then there is a famous Japanese death row inmate Yohei Bando. Japan tried to abstain him 45 times over the span of 25 years, but he survived all of them. How did he manage to survive those attempts? Because he's so autistic that he somehow managed to get flexible joints like Luffy after binging all 1100 One Piece episodes in one go, which allows him to do weird things like this.
Do it! Come on, kill me, I'm here!
And that. And how could I not mention the doctor known as a dissector, a psychopath with the constant urge to slice up anyone he finds interesting. He gave himself a lobotomy to lose the ability to feel pain and then installed upgrades into his body, like the two swords made of his own bones or the compressed gas in his heels for a stronger kick. And I know upon hearing all this crazy shit, this might be a turn off for some martial arts fans who prefer a more realistic approach. While Kengan might not be realistic per se, most techniques are still based on real martial arts, and all the exaggerated elements only make it more fun while still remaining fairly grounded. Every fighter in this anime is still just a human who would easily lose against a gun or Yamcha. But wait a minute, something is fishy here. A fighting tournament, pseudo-realistic martial arts, roided up dudes with crazy personalities? This basically sounds like Baki, and you can't go anywhere on the internet without stumbling on a fan edit or this dude exposing your body to a little dose of cringe. So if people love the Baki formula so much, and Kengan provides exactly that, why is no one talking about it? Why hasn't Super Eye Patch Wolf already made a 5-hour video about it? Which brings us to the topic most of you already guessed was coming, the animation, or more specifically the CGI. CGI and weeps go together like VTubers and a healthy relationship with their father.
They don't.
It's an endless war of subjective opinions claiming to be objective. While there is no right or wrong here, the reality still remains that most people who enjoy anime watch it specifically for the 2D aesthetic they originally fell in love with. I mean, look at Berserk fans. After getting abused for so many years, they said fuck it and created their own studio so they could finally enjoy Berserk the way they always wanted. But do most people actually care if an anime has CGI in it? Nah. As long as it still tricks you into thinking that what you are seeing is mostly 2D, no one cares. You would be genuinely surprised how many people don't even realize how often big studios make use of CGI until you point it out to them. The problem only arises when the primal visual focus stops being two-dimensional. So unless there's major hype around it, it's going to take a lot of convincing for your average anime fan to give CGI without the traditional 2D aesthetic a fair chance. And let's just say that Kengan doesn't do a good job of achieving that. The biggest hurdle that Kengan has is the inconsistency in the animation. One moment you are surprised how expressive the facial features are, and then the next moment you are trying to understand why a game that came out 30 years ago has better facial animations. One moment you get well choreographed, easy to follow fluid body movements, and then the next moment you get janky, stiff action figure movements with this choppy slow motion effect as someone clearly just slowed the footage down without bothering to make it actually smooth. One moment the brutality and anatomy are so well depicted that it genuinely makes you feel uneasy, and then the next moment carved out flesh looks like spilled coffee on a shirt. But the worst offender by far is how they implement different art styles. Every time when you least expect it, they switch from CGI to 2D with no reason or logic behind it. One scene is CGI, the next is 2D. 1 second is CGI, the next is 2D. My favorite one is when in the same shot you see a 2D character standing next to a CGI monstrosity. It feels like the person responsible for creating the 2D scene gave up midway and just dragged over the 3D model, hoping that no one would notice a difference. And when something does look really good, like the gorgeous animated manga panels they use for flashbacks, it backfires. Because instead of appreciating the effort, it just makes the CGI looks even worse by comparison. Like when you're having a nice dream and you suddenly wake up to the harsh and ugly reality. No matter how charitable you are, you just can't shake off the feeling that you are looking at a rushed product with no real faith in its success. Which is really unfortunate because the fight sequences, even if funky at times, are overall well animated. But most people are not going to be willing to sit through a lot of inconsistent dumpster fire animation just to get to the good parts. Especially in the current age where the next anime is just one click away, or the next torrent. Which is precisely why the Kengan anime is more of a hidden gem for martial art artists like myself, rather than something with a broad appeal to the masses. But who is actually responsible for this? Who are this they I've been mentioning throughout the video? Well, it's none other than our beloved old buddy Netflix. While Netflix didn't produce the anime themselves, they never do. They are the ones with the big bucks, which means they have a major say in deciding which studio will animate the project.
Boys, we are kind of f***ed. The rage baiting is not working anymore, and no one wants to watch Stranger Things anymore because it reminds them too much of Drake. So we need something new. What's that Chinese cartoon shit that middle-aged losers love so much called again?
You mean anime, sir?
Yeah, that. Let's make more of those.
There's actually this one series I had my eye on, sir. It's called Kengan Ashura. It's incredibly well received with high ratings and a dedicated fanbase. The best part is, we don't even have to come up with anything ourselves. If we just stick to the source material and find a somewhat experienced studio to animate it, we're going to gain a lot of respect and make a lot of money.
Nah, scratch that. That makes too much sense. Look up the cheapest studio available right now.
It's called Lux Entertainment, sir. The only notable projects they've done is a failed Pokemon ripoff and some CGI fest for a shitty Steam game to attract more whales.
Perfect. We found our studio.
But there is a silver lining. It seems that someone at Netflix has started to recognize the potential of Kengan and has greenlit a crossover with Baki Drone in 2D Baki style, which might be the most ambitious crossover since the Jimmy Neutron and Fairy Odd Parents event. Through Baki, Kengan might gain the attention it needs to blow up at some point. Despite the CGI hurdle, Kengan possesses that bizarre over-the-top it factor that so many people crave. Additionally, with an upcoming final season this year and a sequel called Kengan Omega that hasn't been adapted yet, it's still a bit too early to write off Kengan as a niche series that will never become popular. On that note, my name is Akoch, thanks for watching and consider supporting me on my Patreon.